All right, so joining me now is the leader of that school choice movement here in Rhode Island. You've met her before on this show talking about other issues. As we mentioned, she's been a former senatorial candidate, but now she's dedicating her time to building a school choice movement, educational freedom, if you will, in Rhode Island. So we welcome back to In the Dugout our friend Niyoka Powell. Niyoka, welcome
Hi,
back.
how are you? Thanks for having me.
All right, today as we're taping this on a Monday, but we're playing this on a Tuesday. It's inauguration day, it's MLK Day, it's the introduction of you publicly, more publicly as the leader of the school choice movement in this state. Tell us about, as I put up the flyer, tell us about your big event coming up this coming Sunday.
Yes, so on the 26th of January, the National School Choice Week partners with a group of volunteers from Rhode Island Families for School Choice. And each year we host an event that shows the quality of schools and the immense options that the state of Rhode Island has to offer. We believe that it's a great way for parents and students to come out into the community to see and meet and make appointments to see some of these great schools. And we encourage all schools to come. So this year we're doing an all schools fair with vendors and other schools wanting to have new students come into their world.
So it's this, I know it used to be at the State House many years ago. Then more recently, it's been at Crown Plaza in Warwick. Now you have it at Rhodes on the Pawtuxet in Cranston. So tell us, let's talk a little bit more about what kind of, I'm assuming there'll be a bunch of tables set up there. So you'll have, I assume, private schools, parochial schools, Jewish schools, uh,
Yes. So
non-denominational schools, right?
yes, of course. And we also open it up to public schools as well because we want everyone there. So the reason for the what seems like we're kind of bouncing around the state is because we want to make sure that each community has an opportunity to be able to get to a school choice fair event. Um, I, with the bridge issues that are happening in Rhode Island, we try to make it more centrally located so it's not so difficult for people to get there. Um, We've done the State House events as part of a mix of things to show awareness and bring awareness to parents and to the administration as well. So we change it up from time to time. We don't necessarily have to do a all schools fair, but we chose this year to do so because last year we had over 300 people attend the event, and this year we had booked for about 45 schools, and this year we actually went over our budget for what we needed. So we ended up having to ask for extra space. And so the fair is growing, and that is a great thing because it shows need within our community. And we're really looking to expand this. So at any year, you could have a school choice event within your town.
All right, so you partner with National School Choice Week, which is a very prominent national organization. They help fund and all this. That's a great partnership. You are now I don't know, it was the executive director of Rhode Island Families for School Choice. And that's a long-standing relationship you've had with National School Choice Week, which actually begins on this day, on Sunday, the 26th of January, for a whole week. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your partnership with National School Choice Week and what National School Choice Week is.
So National School Choice Week is an understanding that, there needs to be more choice within the community for the types of schools that children are able to go to based on their needs, based on the available resources, and based on their interest. So most schools, like the public schools or even private schools, tend to have a specific curriculum that they follow. Some are just general, where some are more specific, arts-based, science-based, and some parents believe that their children would do better in those environments. Some parents need a little bit more assistance, whether your child is on the spectrum and not neurotypical. We're trying to provide that resource out there so parents understand which schools are better for their child in order for their child to succeed. So we're not trying to take kids out of the public school. We're not trying to put kids in private schools. We're trying to give parents an option to see how the school system actually works here in Rhode Island. So giving them those options is actually the best way to do so. And then they can make the decision themselves. We're pretty much networking for them and bringing
All
the
right, but you and I both know that while you can come to a fair and you can see choices out there,
yes.
that really Rhode Island doesn't make it easy or really doesn't even allow, in most cases, people to actually make those choices. So it's almost like a tease. Look, you could send your son rather than this crappy school and wherever, wherever town you're from, here's a nice private school, but you know what? The state does not help you in any way get there. So while the choices are there, it's like a menu, but most people can't partake of that menu. And that's a sad reality here in Rhode Island, isn't it, Ioka?
It is a sad reality. And that's why when we look at school systems like those in Arizona or even our partners to the north in New Hampshire, we see that it is doable. When you have an administration and a general assembly that works together for a common cause, where they realize that getting kids into schools that benefit them will actually benefit the state itself in terms of maintaining student enrollment here in the state of Rhode Island and decreasing of the brain drain, then we realize that we're really investing in our students. And taxpayers will benefit from that as well, because you'll have people staying in the state and not leaving. And most parents, especially during COVID, ended up leaving the state of Rhode Island because those RICAS scores were horrific. A lot of them moved to more red states, and that was unfortunate because those are the students that needed the option
That's
to go
right.
to whichever school that they chose. A lot of parents that I've spoken to have moved just because of the education choice perspective.
We won't get into the politics of it all with you today, but I'm sure we'll have you back in to talk about that when we look at maybe specific pieces of legislation. I anticipate you'll be a very regular guest on this show as you start building the movement. And we'll get into this later. Many people know that we were one of the original school choice advocates in this state a good 10 years ago. I'm so pleased to see you and your group picking up the ball there. But I want to ask you one more question before we get into your background, which is quite interesting. I want to just ask you one more question. So on January 26th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the Rhodes on the Pawtuxet in Cranston, um, who should go? I mean, parents with students, school administrators, teachers. Is it a job fair? Is it just looking at schools? I mean, all of
It's
the above.
everything. It's all of the above. Teachers looking to find new avenues for further enrichment. Teachers who are wanting to see what other schools are out there. Prospective job offers. They can reach out to these schools in any way that they choose. So teachers, parents, grandparents, even because I've had grandparents come up to me and ask me about school choice options because they either take care of a child at home so that the parents can work. Some of even homeschoolers. Homeschoolers have also asked questions in that regard. So the partnership between National School Choice Week and Rhode Island Families for School Choice is almost 10 years in the making. And they've always provided the resources to help us get this information out there. So to say that it's just for students or, just for parents, it's literally open to the community. So the community understand what is out there for
Yep.
these kids and how their tax dollars are being used.
All right. Let's find out who Niyoka Powell is. First of all, let's a few short questions. You've been in Rhode Island for how long?
20 years.
All right. You ran for Senate a few times, a special election and a general election. You
Yep.
live in what, the north side of Providence?
Yep. I'm in the north end of Providence in the Elmhurst district.
Elmhurst District. And your family as it exists right now is?
Well, my family as it is exists right now is a cultural mix. I like to call us the melting pot of Rhode Island because, we have a little bit of Cuban, a little Puerto Rican, a little Nigerian, and a little Jamaican in there. So we are a mixed family. We come from various backgrounds and we are very much a cohesive unit. We try to exemplify that family unit. We do a lot of things together. We put a strong importance on education, especially with our little one who actually suffers from epilepsy. She has refractory epilepsy. And so navigating the education system has been interesting. So that's why we believe that this is definitely something worth fighting for.
And I believe your daughter, because of her needs, you felt more comfortable with her in private school?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Now let's go back to your background. You were born in
Jamaica.
Jamaica. Give us the quick history of Niyoka Powell.
So I was born in Jamaica. I came here when I was 9 years old. My father and my stepmom live
Here where? Here where? America?
in America.
Where
Yes.
in America when you were 9?
Connecticut, Stonington,
Okay.
Connecticut. Yes. And I went to public school. I was vice president of my graduating class. I was a singer. I did musical theater. I ran track and cross country. It was a great time, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the public school system in Connecticut. And
And and then you finish your high school there in
yep, I
Stonington?
finished high school, then came to Rhode Island for Rhode Island College, and that was an experience. I met a plethora of new people that I was never around. It was the first time I was around so many Black people because we were the only multiracial family in town. I was one of three Black people that graduated from my high school. And, while I was at Rhode Island College, I was an RA on campus. I really enjoyed being there. And you learn a lot of life lessons outside the bubble of Stonington. And so it has really made me fall in love with Providence, the city of Providence. And, now that we have our own family, I'm feeling the need to go back to a small town.
Ah, ha, ha. So Providence might not forever be in your future. All right.
No.
So, all right. Yeah. Well, it's certainly hard to win. You ran twice in
Yes,
Providence where
it is
usually it goes
hard.
80, 90% Democrat. You ran as a
Yes,
Republican. Pretty
yes,
much impossible task right there. All right. Now,
yeah.
as far as your career, more recently, you've been a nurse, right? Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
your nursing background.
I'm a nurse. I used to work in psychology. I was primarily a detox nurse, which was great. During the COVID pandemic, I ended up being one of those nurses who lost their job. So I had to
Because of the
figure out
vaccine?
because of the vaccine. I mean, at the time, my little one was going through a slew of different tests, and there was a possibility of brain surgery. We're the same blood type, so there was a high probability of a transfusion. So I opted to wait. And unfortunately, during that wait period, I was fired because I refused to take the vaccine. Um, Fast forward to like a month
And this
later
was a Rhode Island or Massachusetts
in Rhode Island.
healthcare firm, or Rhode Island.
Rhode
Okay.
Island, yes, Rhode Island. But then I ended up working through a contract corporation that I said, this is how things are going. This is what I need to be able to do. And they gave me that okay to go ahead. So currently I work in occupational health in manufacturing, which is amazing because I end up doing a lot of like the case management for workman's comp. I deal a lot with OSHA, which is great because then I see the behind the scenes of how decisions are made at the federal level and how that affects the worker on the floor. So it's literally a whirlwind and a spin around of my career where I now understand a lot of how things work on the administrative end and how policies affect the worker on the floor.
Now, I mentioned earlier you ran as a candidate twice. You obviously want to become involved in the political process. Now, maybe more of the legislative advocacy movement with being head of the Rhode Island Families for School Choice. But you're also you didn't just run as a Republican. You remained involved in city and statewide organizations. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I am the second vice chair for the state GOP, and I am also on my city committee because I think that in order to understand how things are going to affect our communities, we need to understand how the policies are made, and we need to be a little bit more fluent in who makes those decisions. And it is as an American, that is your right to take part in these organizations and these bodies that make the decisions that revolve around your life.
You know, you came onto the scene to me. I don't know if you remember, many years ago, I was just looking through some Facebook posts and maybe you commented on something I wrote. And I went to your page and you were kind of speaking in code. You didn't
Yeah,
say, but and I contacted you, Price. So, there's something that's telling me what I'm reading here. I think you might be a little bit on the limited government conservative side of things, and you go,
yeah,
you're absolutely right. You didn't
yeah.
say it flat out, but you were very, very subtle, and that skill is going to help you a lot, I'm sure, in this movement. Now, again, we're taping this on Monday. Uh, I want to bring up, for many reasons, Martin Luther King Day to you.
Yes.
I want to know what it means to you, and I would
Mhm.
like to know how you think Martin Luther King would look at the issue of educational freedom for any low income family.
Yeah, so I believe that Dr. King is the embodiment of what the American dream is supposed to be. Speaking of conflicts, speaking of policies, speaking of what the average family needs. And in terms of education, he was very vocal when it comes to education. One of my favorite quotes from him is education must enable a man to become more efficient and achieve the legitimate goals of his life. And that's what we're trying to do with Rhode Island Families for School Choice, is provide those steps that will ensure that these kids are prepared for life after school, that they can actually flourish with the skills that they learn at school and not have to relearn or remake themselves after they've graduated a K through 12 education. Rhode Island is such a melting pot. Dr. King would have loved to see it the way that it is. And I believe that by following the melting pot mentality and catering to the needs of these different types of children is the way to go. Whether it is having them have school choice, whether it's enabling our tax dollars to follow those children, it would be something that's beneficial to the education of these children and less of a burden on these families.
Now, of course, the most famous of all, Dr. King's great quotes shouldn't be judged on the color of your skin, but on the
Mhm.
content of your character. And as it
Right.
relates to education, it's well, personal character is one thing. I think he was probably talking in a broader sense. Personal
Mhm.
character, skill sets developed, educational background, all of that builds a person's persona, if you would.
Yes.
So, do you agree with me that education, life experience is also included when Dr. King refers to content of your character?
Yeah, 100%. Because being Jamaican, I can see that I have access to many different educational systems. I have an elder sister who lives in England, and she's a teacher in the school system there. I still have
Wow.
siblings who live in Jamaica. So I'm able to talk to them about curriculum. And in Jamaica, there are classes revolving around agriculture, biology, tourism. So there's a huge spectrum of classes that these students are supposed to take. I know that in our school system, you might get 4 or 5 classes. In Jamaica, the list is 15 or 16 classes that these students are taking on top of other classes that they have to pass in order to pass the national exam. So it's a much more rigorous process. But when you come here from Jamaica, half the time, even if it's a college degree or a high school diploma, it's not weighed the same, except the content is far more. So we have to make sure that these students who are coming into the school system, who are of a different background, who are coming into our system, are able to navigate the system regardless of what we have for them and give them the credit that they deserve for their accomplishments because it sometimes far outweighs what America is doing.
Dr. King also said this, and this I want to segue this comment
Mhm.
because this is what we ran across, and I don't know if you've experienced yet. Even people you would think,
Yeah.
whether it's Republicans or stated conservatives or people in our coalition, when it comes to the issue of school choice, when it comes to standing up to the teachers union who will oppose any aspect of school choice with every fiber in their being, you will hear crickets.
Mhm.
You will hear silence
Mhm.
from people who we think are on our team. Have
Mhm.
you, in your early work on this issue, have you bumped into any of that hesitancy?
Yes, there is hesitancy, especially because I have a lot of friends who are teachers in the public school system. The first talking point that I get is always, well, you're trying to take kids out of the public school. That is not true. We are not trying to take people or kids out of the public school system. We are embracing every single option that these children have. School choice is
That's a parent's decision. We want to empower
correct, correct. And
parents with those decisions and those tools. Not your decision, not my decision. A parent should have that power. Don't you agree?
I 100% agree because if I did not have the choice to put my child into a different school system, I wouldn't have gotten the support that I needed as a parent going through a very difficult time. I think a lot of the times the school system doesn't understand that in order for the child to thrive, the family has to be able to thrive. And it was a very emotional 4 years of dealing with epileptic seizures that brought her into the hospital for weeks on end sometimes. And it just was very uncontrolled. Now, thank God, we are in a more controlled environment where she hasn't had a full-blown episode that required hospitalization for over a year. So that if
Oh,
it
God bless.
wasn't, thank you. And I mean, if it was because of the constant communication between myself, the school nurse, and her teacher, and working with our neurology department, it was a wonderful experience, and I cannot be thankful enough and express that each parent needs to be able to say this about the system that their children are in.
Well, you're going to, as I was alluding to, the political support you hopefully can build over the years is going to be really tough because not even your friends are going to automatically support you. Now, one thing, the reason I'm wearing this hat today, my 47th hat, is to I did it on purpose with you. I normally don't, put my political views out here. We're a nonprofit
Yeah.
organization, but I wore it today for you with this issue because I believe that the new Trump administration and his Department of Education under Linda McMahon, right down the road from Connecticut, should she be confirmed, is going to take a very different view than the Biden administration did and the Obama administration did. I think one of the reasons a lot of kids, this is my commentary, you can weigh in if you'd like, but I think one of the reasons a lot of families now want school choice is because a lot of the junk they're teaching our kids, the divisive stuff from critical race theory to DEI to the over sexualization, and they're hoping and they hope that in certain private schools they might not find that stuff, although it is in a lot of those private schools too, but still that's up to the parents. My point being, all of that federal support of that divisive content is going to go away now. That's done. And hopefully that will mean public schools and private schools alike will get back to more basics and education. Why do you think so many parents and families need the freedom to choose the educational path for their kids?
I believe every parent needs to have that option because every parent's different. Every child's need is different. And we can't have this cookie cutter mentality that one size fits all. One of the concerns that are being discussed in other school systems that I've spoken to is that a lot of the children who have the option to go to, let's say, a charter school are leaving, and the public school system is being left with a lot of high need students. So a lot of the mentally challenged or the non-neurotypical students are left in the schools. So it becomes more difficult for the teachers because they have so many students who require higher, who are not higher functioning or need a different way of being taught. So if we have school choice options, we're not taking kids out of the public schools, as they're saying, but rather it's giving the parents the option to find the school that their student will try,
Yep.
the parents will get a school that their child is going to be able to thrive in, where the students are also being supported along with the teachers being supported. Because any parent who has to go through difficulties with their child will support that educator, as I've done, because that means that we're both on the same page with how our child is being taught. And what works with the teacher might be something that can be put into the home. And that's how mom or dad will help with the homework. And it will just be better all around. It's a complete continuity of care, as they say in nursing, where everyone knows what's happening and the student will thrive. So it is essential that parents have the choice to choose the schools. Some might choose on merit, some might choose on resources. It's the parent's choice.
So as I mentioned in my open, our organization, our center has done a lot of work on educational freedom and choice over the years. We put together a booklet a good 8, 10 years ago. Here's one of the pages of that booklet. Now, this data I don't think has changed all that much. In fact, it might even be better. But this is going to be your challenge, and this is what's so unusual about this topic.
Mhm.
Large percentages across the political spectrum support school choice.
Yes.
Democrats, Republicans, but yet lawmakers, especially in this state, who are beholden to
Mhm.
public teacher unions, will never vote for it. So it seems to me, your job is to motivate
Mhm.
the grassroots that before you can have any kind of legislative success, you're going to have to build a formidable grassroots
Yes.
movement to put pressure on these politicians and let them know if you don't support what the overwhelming majority of we support in our communities, you, Mr. or Mrs. Rep or Senator, could be out of a job.
Yeah.
So, what is your first priority? Is it to build a movement, or is it to introduce legislation?
Oh, my first movement is always grassroots. Parents need to be more informed. The communities need to be more informed. So students' participation in this process is essential as well. So doing recruitments and getting members from the community and from like college campuses to kind of exemplify the reason and the thoughts behind the school choice movement. We need to be as grassroots as possible because if we're only speaking to those who make the decisions and not those who are affected by the decisions, then we're going to get nowhere because we already know the decisions of people who make the decisions because we wouldn't be in this position to begin with. So starting a grassroots movement is our first priority. We've done tabling sessions over the summer at different block parties hosted by councilwomen in the city of Providence. We were invited to do those tabling events. And so even people within the city council in Providence are partial to the idea of school choice as well. So it doesn't have to go all the way to the General Assembly. Having those ideas even in your communities and being able to talk to your council people about it is always essential. And when I do the tabling events at a council person's summer event, I do say, and I do point out, your council person is right there. If you have questions or concerns on how they are of what their thoughts are on school choice, please approach them and ask questions because they're the ones you've elected into office to make these decisions that are right for you and your family.
All right, let's close with this. So there's really two ways people can get to learn a little bit more about you, your movement, and some of the schools that are out there. First, I know your website is under construction,
Yes.
reconstruction right now, but
Mhm.
it is edchoiceri.org.
Yes.
So I know once it's back up, there's a way you can sign up and get informed about upcoming events and activities. And
Yes.
then, of course, as we started the show, let's conclude with it as well. Or we really recommend, I'm going to be there. My wife's going to be there. And many of our friends will be there. The all school fair this coming Sunday, January 26th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Any final word on what people can expect to see or hear or meet if they come to the fair,
Well, you
Niyoka?
can expect to speak with bus companies like .co. You can expect to talk to people who are vying for contracts to provide the food for the school departments. You can talk to different types of schools, parochials, magnets, charters, public. We'll have a good mix of schools in there that parents can actually go in and ask questions. If you need to sign up for a tour, this is the perfect time to do it. If you've ever been interested in a particular school for your child, this is a perfect time to sign up for a tour for these schools. We have National Catholic School Week is coming up that same week. So a lot of the schools within the state of Rhode Island will be hosting their open houses as well. So there's a lot going on. You'll see for the first time this year, we've done an art contest on school choice. And we have had many submissions come in from K through 12. So it was interesting. It was
You
interesting to
know, if you have digital versions of your favorite ones, send them along, and we'll be happy to show our audience next time we have you on. That sounds
sure.
like a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. It's definitely more of a fair. We're hoping to get as many schools for next year's event. So if you want to pre-register, let us know. We'll pre-register you for next year's event. And, my goal is to get it to somewhere as big as the convention center because our kids need representation, our schools need representation, and so do these amazing teachers who are trying to educate our children.
And we know that in public schools, the unions tie their hands so much, where often that's not the case in many of the private schools. And Niyoka Powell, I have a sneaking suspicion
Oh
that
boy.
you are going to succeed in the school choice movement where we did not many, many years ago.
Oh, I
And
pray
we
so.
want to help and expose as much as we can. So, can we count on you to come back and keep our viewers regularly updated about what you're doing?
Of course, because even right now we're helping other school districts and trying to figure out their budget on how to hold on to an overwhelming decision for transferring a charter school into the public charter system. We're working with our allies throughout the country to try and figure out what we can do to help in that situation, whether it's helping the administration to organize their budget a little bit better to accommodate this. So we're not really fighting against any type of school. What we're trying to do is make sure it's not a burden on taxpayers and a burden on the families. And so we got to figure out a system that works. And that's why school choice is essential for every single legislative body to take seriously.
What a big week this is. We have
Huge.
Martin Luther King Day. We have the inauguration of a new pro-education, pro-school choice education president. We have the beginning of National School Choice Week. And of course, we have your Rhode Island All School Fair. Wow, lot to talk about, Niyoka. Thank you for your time today. I know we'll have you back on soon. God bless and good luck with all of your duties, responsibilities, and of course, your lovely family.
Thank you so much, Sten.